Reign of Jafar is just a day away from being released, and let me tell you, all these cards have a very good chance of blowing the entire meta wide open. Every single color, and then some got some support that was needed to take these decks to the next level. So how is that going to be changing the meta, and what kind of deck lists can you expect to see when Reign of Jafar releases on Friday? All of that and more starting right now. So with Reign of Jafar being released, everyone is going to be flocking to the new cards to try to build up their decks to the best possibilities. Well, we are going to be discussing 5 decks in particular that could be pretty dang good in this next meta. And guys, let me tell you, this meta is feeling like it could be wide open and probably one of the most wide metas that we have seen. Yes, it still feels like Ruby Sapphire is going to be prevalent, but still, everything else has gotten a huge boost in power as well to contend with even the best decks. Now, of course, a lot of people are going to be going in for Shren Dogs and things of that nature, and Shren Dogs is probably going to be one of the more budget-friendly decks outside of at least Rapunzel, of course. But with that, there's going to be so much to look forward to with all of these new cards added in. Now, the biggest thing, of course, is when these new cards come out, be sure to not go into all the hype and be like, just go ahead and buy anything and everything. And especially do not chase the hype of going into, the Oswald decks of point that we saw at the release of Azurites or Arcasia's Island. That was pretty crazy because I mean we had the tournament that occurred. It was a really big tournament, over 100 people, and Oswald items just absolutely dominated. And that caught like wildfire, where everyone immediately went to go buy Oswald's left and right, and it was just an absolute madhouse trying to get that done. So luckily, hopefully that's not going to happen, but if it does happen to you, just wait a little bit. The meta's not even necessarily defined, and there are so many decks out there that are going to be absolutely dominant at the beginning, and I feel like it's really going to be anyone's game when we get started. But first and foremost, of course, yes, we are going to be talking about Shren Dogs and the list here. Now, of course, first and foremost, Merryweather is going to be the card that you don't necessarily have to worry about. You can switch that out for any other card that you would like. Little John is still going to be a really good card because it's a 0/4 that you'll be able to have some damage on with this as well. At the same time, I would still even probably switch the Merryweather with the brand new Goofy as well, because he'll be able to remove a damage and immediately ready up your character as soon as that damage is removed. At the same time, too, I wouldn't really mind having the 3-cost tramp, a couple of them as well, to get things going in that regard. At the same time, this is still going to be a very dominant deck and one that you have to watch out for. If this deck can just go ahead and flood the board, it is going to be so hard to get things under control, and they are just going to be able to take everything over. You are going to be able to gain 10, 12 lore in a single turn, and it's going to be so hard to match up against. At the same time, too, Tramp is going to be a really interesting card because anytime one of your characters is banished on your opponent's turn, what that's going to mean is that you will of course be able to draw a card off of that. Then of course the new ladies as well, being able to play a character with cost 2 or less onto the field just like that is going to be absolutely insane. Now there's a couple of different things that you can definitely do with this. This is not going to be a defined list. Minnie Mouse is going to be a new one that you could potentially add in this case, because whenever you play a character, this character gets +1 for this turn. And of course, if you combo that off with the lady as well, you can play 2, and she's automatically questing for 2. There's a ton of 1-drops as well, so if you can just get some really good card draw going your way, you can reflood the board, you can quest for a lot of lore, and absolutely dominate everything. Then, of course, with that, you can even play a go-go at the end of the turn with a lady, for example, and then pay just 2 in that case after that to be able to go ahead and activate her ability to gain lore off of damage of an opposing character. So there's a lot of really fun stuff coming along here. The biggest thing, of course, is that this is going to be a little bit hard because, again, if you take out the the steam that this deck has coming out of the gate, and you're able to handle that rush, and they're not able to draw as well as they might have been able to in the past, then of course you're not going to be able to win these games. But still, the consistency of this deck is absolutely scary, and also being able to get a tramp on turn 4 that can immediately replenish card draw is going to be absolutely insane. So a lot of really cool things to look forward to with this deck. I would even recommend even maybe adding some Donalds in there to get some additional lore gain and some bodyguard protection as well. But time will see on how this continues to perform. I'm pretty excited about this. Now, next, of course, is gonna be Bolt Song. Now, this was an interesting idea. We didn't necessarily see Bolt do a whole lot this last set necessarily, but I really do think, especially with the brand new Goofy over here, we're going to be seeing a lot of really interesting stuff, mainly due to the fact that Goofy is going to be a really good card, a better version of Simba. Because, of course, Simba, at the end of your turn, any characters that were exerted, you can ready them all up as long as the Simba stays exerted. Now, of course, that was a little bit slow because you had to shift into the Simba to make sure that he was exerted to get that done. In this case, though, with Goofy, you don't need to anymore, and his ability activates as soon as he comes in and you end your turn. So, I mean, that's going to be just a huge change of events. So, I thought about adding a bolt in this case to get things moving faster. And then, of course, with that, we're going to be adding Sven to try to get bolt going as fast as we can, maybe even coming in on turn 3. Then, turn 4, you could go ahead and do a lady and a daisy, or a lady and a troubadour, something along those lines to get things moving pretty fast. And then if you could even attack in with a bolt, get some damage, have Goofy then remove the damage, ready him up, and you can get a lot of activation going fast for a ton of lore. And then on top of that, while you are controlling the board state with all of your singers as well, you can just continue to gain lore with Bolt as fast as possible. Now, the cool thing about this is, too, you can quest with Bolt, play a Sven, ready him up, go ahead and then have him sing a song, even if it's a storm. And you can even have the storm target Bolt, for example. He can target himself in the song, deal 2 damage to him, then go ahead and have Goofy ready him up, gain lore for everything else. So there is a lot of potential here with this combo, and I really do think that this kind of deck idea is being slept on. Now, the reason why we aren't playing as many whole new worlds is because I don't necessarily feel like it is as needed in this case. Desperate Plan will be able to do a lot with helping out with that, while still also our uninkable count is a little high at 16, but still not necessarily too high to be out of reach, especially with the deck list that we have. And so it's going to be really interesting to see, but I am really looking forward to what Bolt is going to be able to do, especially when associated with Steel Song. Now, with that being said, too, we have Blurple. Now, there is going to be a lot of different variations of Blurple. We talked about that in my last video, and we even have gameplay of Blurple, specifically the Jafar Blurple list. And I really do think that this is one of the better versions of the Blurple list that can just really take the game by storm here. The biggest reason why is because Jafar can just go ahead and quest for a lot, but again, the biggest thing that is going to be helping it out so much is going to be the lamp. Now, with the lamp, you're going to be able to draw 2 if you have a Jafar in play, and if you have a Genie in play, you can bounce back a character with cost 4 or less. And if you have both out, you get to activate both abilities for 2. You can go ahead and pay 2, play this lamp, immediately bounce it, and get the activated effects. Now, Into the Unknown is going to be an interesting card because, yes, it can help your opponent, but again, if you're ending up taking out, a Maui Half-Shark and putting it into the Inkwell and things of that nature, that can really help you out for the long run. And again, the biggest thing that really slows down Blurple, or really hurts Blurple in this case, is going to be if your opponent ends up going too wide too fast. How do you get back into that game? Especially because this isn't necessarily a very attack-heavy deck necessarily. You have your Hades that can go ahead and remove things, but when there's just so wide of a board, there's not going to be much you can do to really get back into the game. Well, Into the Unknown just will really help you to be able to do that. And there was a game that I was playing where I had a Bell go ahead and sing Into the Unknown. Then I played a Hades, and then on the following turn, I went ahead and took something out with Bell and then played a Let It Go, or I had Jafar, or not Jafar, Hades sing Let It Go to go ahead and add another character into the Inkwell. So it just gives you that little bit more of an edge and a little bit more consistency on taking care of your opponent's board states without necessarily destroying your own as well. Then with that, of course, Fantastical and Magical is going to be one of the most dominant cards, especially with the Jafar build. Yes, by itself, it is a really good card, but when you accompany that with Jafar, it just takes it to a whole new level. You have a regular Jafar out, your 4-cost Jafar. You go ahead and you shift in your Jafar for 5. You exert it to seeing Fantastical and Magical with everything else that you have, and then you're going to be drawing that many cards and gaining twice as much lore, because anytime you draw a card while Jafar is exerted, you are able to gain a lore. So instead of Fantastical and Magical only gaining 1 lore per card that you draw, Jafar adds +1 per card to that, which is absolute insanity and can really end the game. I gotta say though, I am I am very tempted to move up Fantastical and Magical up to level, or up to 3 in that case, just to really ensure that I get there on the next game. But man, this is probably the biggest deck that I am most excited for and can't wait to see how this performs. And especially with the popsicle and the lamp, the Tamatoas just become so vital in this case, especially when you start getting into 8, 9, 10 ink. You go ahead and play a Tamatoa, you get back 2 lamps, you play the lamps, you bounce them, you draw the cards, you gain the lore, or you just have more cards that you can actually draw and get into your hand to try to continue to get the answers that you need to maintain the board state. I am very excited about this deck. Now, this was the big thing. Kiwi really fell to the wayside as soon as they got rid of, of course, the Fortisphere and the draw power that it necessarily needed to be consistent, and that was really sad. With that, though, we got that back with Desperate Plan. We also have that back with the 7-cost Sing Together song as well. There's a lot of things that are really fun to look forward to with this, a lot of consistency. If you want to play the docks, if you want to play the Desperate Plans as well, both go hand in hand together. You're going to have a lot of really great answers here to be able to get things done. I still do like the Bell and Popsicle combo, because if you do manage to get that off, you can go turn 1 Bell, then you can go turn 2 Calhoun, and you can also even do a Storm in that case to get things going. Now, with that being said, I absolutely love the 4-cost Stitch. Now, he specifically is a 3/4, and then whenever he banishes a character in a challenge, you're able to draw a card and gain a lore. Now, that can immediately just help you out with this deck and get you across the finish line. Now, with that, there's going to be a lot of things that can really make this deck so difficult to go against. Cogsworth can go down to 3 if you so choose. That's not necessarily going to be anything to write home about. We did have Alice's in here, but sometimes Alice's, especially when you don't have a very wide board state, can end up hurting you more than helping you, especially when you need the ink. So to help mitigate that, we decided to go ahead and switch out the Alice's for the Calhouns instead, especially when we're worried more about the aggro. There's a really good chance also with the Lady that we're going to be seeing a big return in Dwarven Mine aggro of Amber Steel. That's something that's in discussion. We haven't necessarily taken a look of a deck list like that in this set, but I mean, the Lady just absolutely speeds up that deck. And again, we got Desperate Plan that can come in and give you 3 new cards, which can make that aggro deck very scary to have to go against. And so having the Calhouns there, having, the Bells, and then on top of that, just the big removals, the Robin Hoods, the Stitches and things of that nature to really get a lot of benefit out of the aggro of your opponent makes it to where you can do a lot to be able to maintain board control and continue to win. Now, of course, this will still be going along really well against other deck types as well, but this was the big thing. This can really shut down Shren Dogs and other aggro decks of that nature. Now, this is going to be an interesting one, and this is the last deck that we are going to be talking about. I don't necessarily feel like this is going to be necessarily meta, but it's a cool idea all the same. With that, I am going to be saying that we will still be seeing Ruby Sapphire, but there wasn't necessarily a whole lot that it got that will really take it to that next level. There is a possibility where we could see an items build, because we did get a lot of Lumiere, for example, some support there on getting that kind of extra support towards an items build. And of course, there is a lot of like Maurice's workshops and things of that nature that can really add a lot of value quickly if you get things going with that. And so there's a good chance that we might see some of that. But generally, we're going to see the regular Ruby Sapphire build that has been able to be tried and true with all of this as well. And so that's going to be what's interesting about this. Now, in this case, we decided to go a bit more on the action side build because Lilo has the ability to where if you play 3 actions in a turn, you can play Lilo for free. She is a 4/4, questing for 2. Now, she does have the ability that when you play this character, ready chosen character, they can't quest for the rest of this turn. But still, I mean, if you have a Maui half shark out, even if you have a Robin Hood out and you want to protect it again from being attacked, there's a lot that you can go ahead and do with that. So it'll be really interesting to go ahead and see how this is going to go and if this is going to be able to stay in the meta as well. But it seems like the nice part is we saw with like Azurite Sea and even a little bit in Arcasia's Island that Ruby Sapphire really got a lot of support there that still made it pretty prevalent in the meta. And so the Hiram Band was a great choice. The popsicles and everything like that are still going to be utilized here, and the deck is still going to be meta relevant. And so it's going to be interesting to see how all of this is going to continue to evolve as we get into this next set. But still, this is going to be an interesting idea. I'm really excited to see how this is going to go, and if we might even get to see a little Lilo Shark coming into the meta as well. This is going to be a deck that maybe a deck version at least that people won't necessarily be expecting, especially with all of the actions, but can still be a lot of fun to be able to have going here. And so anyway, it's going to be interesting. And there's a lot of fun with even more decks that we could be diving into that really could be still taking the meta by storm. But we're not going to be doing that today because that is going to be all the time we have today. So what deck are you looking forward to the most in getting going with this current meta? Go ahead and let me know down in the comments below. And until next time, guys, have a good one.